Another year of Vanguard has gone by, and the best way to celebrate this is to take a look at the best things that happened to Vanguard this year. So join me as we count down not only 2019, but also the top 5 best things that happened to Vanguard, that brought to you by Bushiroad. Stand up! Vanguard! To start off this video, we go over something that might not impact you personally, and its effect will only really apply until next year. And that is that Bushiroad decided to allow for Auto Worlds invite for the champion of this year's World Championships. This is a major step forward for a more competitive scene in Vanguard. Every year we get some wacky results of Worlds because some players didn't bring their most optimal deck you would bring to a World Championships, and this had to do with that there wasn't much to play for, as every participant gets the World promo card and playmat. Sure, the top 3 would get a potential and nice small trophy, but something really impactful. Now, being able to win a direct invite to next year's Worlds is a big thing. Not only do you spare yourself the time, effort and money to qualify again for next year, you also instantly get a sponsored ticket, which means you don't have to spend a dime to do so. This will give players a more incentive to bring their A game to the World Finals, and in turn will give us a more realistic representation of what the extra meta looks like when watching the live stream. Also, we can throw in that they allowed for cross-continental play in regionals, but I'm not sure why they put in the ruling that those players who do so can qualify for a world invite, which is really odd to me. Next on the list, we have a double pointer, as we have the new anime season, but also the support focus. They both stem from the same decision as to why I decided to put them together. But another reason is because the anime alone isn't enough for me to put it on the list, as I stopped watching back when the reboot just started. However, it took a more of slice of life approach, where it once again is about real people playing a card game, and no bigger thing going on, which was the charm of the original series. Different Fight made a solid video on the topic to explain a new course, and from my understanding is a much needed change of pace for the series. But tied to that are also the new support set that came from this new anime, and we've seen that the main cast is using clans that are very underrepresented. So we see an increase in usage of Genesis, Neonectar, Great Nature, Angel Feathers, Nubatama, and although Golds is part of this group, it deviates from Ezel, which is a fresh take on the clan. Although these sets are somewhat underperforming from Phantasmal Steed's point of view, it doesn't take away we now finally get to see different types of playstyles being pushed than the generic Royal, Shadow, Kagero and Gears to some extent. And with the new release of Team Dragon's Vanity, we can see that the new sets will be able to contend with the current top decks to some extent, which is a good sign for Astral Force coming next year. For the number 3 spot, I have a controversial one, as this place goes to the release of Premium Collection. This set has some major issues, as I talked about in my biggest mistakes of 2019 video, as the execution of this set was done horribly. The power balance of the cards were way off, some cards were insanely broken, and some cards became insane with new support, but in the same set, you had cards which would never see the day of light, as they were just terribly useless. But the reason why I put it on the list is what the set represents. It was probably the most hyped and anticipated set of the year. Every premium player wanted a premium exclusive set with new strides to upgrade their G-zones. Weeks before the set was released, people started speculating which strides would be in them and what they would do. Different YouTubers, including myself, did countless videos on the set, and everybody was in high spirits. A new card was revealed. And the day when they dropped almost half the cards was one of the craziest days I've seen in the community, as everybody was scrambling for information and to learn if their stride was insane or not. Even though the set has some major flaws in terms of power balance, this set is widely successful, as it brought in so much attention to all fronts. And I'm excited for next year, as they confirmed a Premium Collection 2020. I just hope they learn from their mistakes and balance the strides a bit more. I don't mind a couple of cards are better than the rest, but the gap shouldn't be as wide as Full Grade and Ichikishima. A big thing that happened this year, or rather you could say 2 big things, were the release of 2 digital games for Vanguard. As for number 2, we have Vanguard EX and Vanguard Zero. Love it or hate it, both these games brought a lot to Vanguard. EX gave us finally a game simulation. The fact it was only for standard and had limited card pool wasn't as bad as it seems. As a programmer myself, I know how difficult it is to build a game that should be supported indefinitely without knowing what kind of wacky game mechanics could be introduced later down the line. Think of gift markers, gauges, and now even the astral plane. These are so fundamentally different than a normal game that it makes it almost impossible to make the correct code for it. Big chance they needed to overhaul the entire skill/battle algorithm to make sense of these changes. EX gave us finally the option to play Vanguard with people from across the globe without having to deal with the area's flaws. It also allowed many players to experience decks or clans that they otherwise never could because of money or in some case distribution issues. Vanguard Zero on the other hand gave us a mobile version of a Vanguard game. Yes, the game is more RNG reliant, yes, the game is not actual Vanguard, and yes, the game has old cards and effects. But if that's an issue, it means the game wasn't made for you. Zero gave us at least finally a Vanguard game that will be updated and supported and is on the go, so it allows us to play whenever we want. But the biggest plus this game has is that we're going to get an actual English version of the game. This is a big sign as it shows that Bushiroad acknowledged the international community. Vanguard Zero also allows non-Vanguard players to get in touch with the gist of Vanguard. Sure, it's a lot different from the actual game, but there are a lot of core features that are the same. Bushiroad's biggest problem is that they aren't really advertising their game outside of Japan. A mobile game has much more potential to be found to new players, or at the very least makes it a lot easier to introduce Vanguard to new players without them having to spend a significant amount of money to start playing, because TCGs are an expensive hobby and mobile games not. Well, at least if you don't go overboard. Both EX and Zero bring a valuable thing to Vanguard. They are enjoyable for current players, but more importantly, they allow new players to find and learn the game, which helps us all way more in the end than anything else. Before we go into my number one best thing to happen this year, let's first go over some honorable mentions. First off, the Revival Collection Volume 2. The return of the Revival Collection was a pleasant surprise. This set came more or less together with the Premium Collection and was together a 2-set package to help standard players to potentially transit into Premium. It gave reprints of useful G-Guards and Strides as well as reprints of the Zero Dragons, which is always useful. The only negative point I have is the inclusion of Stride Fathers. Yes, they're handy for new players, but most decks don't use them anymore, and this spot could maybe have been gone to a vital staple card from different grades. But that's just a personal thing. Hopefully they will keep reintroducing Revival Collection, as they also use this set to reissue old cards in some fancy new designs, which I'm all for. Next we have the introduction of Gift 2 types. Yes, I know a lot of people complain that Protect 2 is useless and worthless and Axel 2 is way too broken and shouldn't have been made. And this point isn't per se about the exact Gift 2 markers we got, but more what they bring to the table. Also the fact they made it that every old card still works with it and suddenly made older cards stronger. A lot of the time I heard people complain Standard has no choices, single lines of plays, straightforward, and going first is always OP. Gift 2, or rather the mechanic of Gift 2, combat all of this in one go. By now having more choices of getting different gifts, it allows you to either build different types of deck to abuse a single gift marker, or your deck has now more options to navigate through more situations. But the fact that you need to choose which marker you want to get means the first person to generate a marker is locked in, and therefore the player going second can pick a better matching marker to combat the opponent's marker choice. This gives the second player much more power. The only issue right now is that the current pool of markers won't allow for this line of play all too often, but it's not unlikely Bushiroad will introduce a type 3 marker and maybe even more to increase the options. Also with multiple markers we can see different kinds of mechanics that tailor to a specific type of marker, like Genesis with the Astral Plane, Nubatama tokens with Protect 2, and Hemscape was almost made for Axel 2. And even now with Future Angels we're going to see a more focus on Protect 2 abilities. Although the first wave of new markers haven't been a wild success so far, that doesn't mean that the basis isn't there for something amazing. Last honorable mention is the fact that Bushiroad finally stepped up and start hitting cards that need to get hit in some way. We saw this at the beginning of the year with the hit on Enigmatic Assassin, which put a stop to an insane and unfair NOK OTK deck. And later in the year we saw hits on multiple big cards and strong decks like Bermuda, Ichikishima, golds, and even Nubatama. Of course, I talked about this in my previous video that banning a card is a potential dangerous route, but on the other hand, it also shows that Bushiroad isn't afraid to step up and correct things when needed. Let's see what happens next month when the next ban list hits after Worlds. It's time to end 2019, and the best way to do it is to talk about what, according to me, is the best thing to happen this year. And that is none other than all the new game mechanics that were introduced this year. For anybody that knows me, this was quite obvious. I love new, interesting and fun game mechanics. And this year, we weren't short of any of that. We got the new lottery mechanic for Great Nature, the Bindstone mechanic for Gears, and although it's very limited right now, it has some real potential, which I hope they improve on. We got Soul Reducer for Genesis, which was an interesting take on the clan. We got Messianic and Brand, which both are weak, but pretty fun concepts. We got Drive Checking Rearguards, Drive Check Manipulation, and a brand new keyword in Melody. We also reintroduced the new types of guard restriction, which each in their own way introduced a new dynamic in the game. And don't forget about the big ones, the new token mechanics with the Vision token, Evil Decoy token and the improved Plan tokens. But more importantly, the big thing this year was the Astral Plane mechanic. This is something I've been thinking and discussing for years. Ever since Hearthstone introduced the quest mechanic, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be awesome if we could have the same type of mechanic in Vanguard, where we were asked to do a certain task or complete an objective, and once we do that, we get a reward. Astral Plane and Valkyrian are exactly that. The only thing I could wish for is that they introduce this similar thing, but then with a different execution for other clans. Gear Chronicles Bind mechanic is a pseudo quest mechanic, and that's why I really like the new cards for the clan. So all in all, 2019 was a good year for me in this regard, as Bushiroad introduced a ton of interesting new gameplay and game dynamics to enjoy Vanguard. Sure, not everything is strong or the best new deck, but in the end, we all play this game because we enjoy it and because we want to enjoy it. And new game mechanics and interactions are one of the best ways to do it. And in that regards, I can only say that Bushiroad did a fine job. And there you have it, the top 5 best things to happen in Vanguard. Of course, this is my personal take on this year of 2019. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think should have been made on the list, or is something that people are overlooking that should give a little bit more attention, as that is something that Bushiroad really stepped up their game in terms of this specific year in regards to whatever happened in the previous years. And we're starting to enter 2020. You might have heard all the fireworks in the background of this video, because apparently in the Netherlands nobody can save their fireworks for the moment that it's 12 o'clock, as currently it's just 6 o'clock here. So yeah, there you go. So I hope you guys have an enjoyable New Year's Eve and enjoyable and healthy 2020, as I hope to see you guys next year as well, as there's going to be a lot to happen next year, and I have some amazing things planned as well. So as always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video and everything on this channel possible. Also, I want to thank you for watching this entire year, or as long as you did, as you guys and everybody is so amazing. If you want to support the channel, then you can head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But as always, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I wish you all a happy and healthy 2020.